Hi, this is Discussing Games, and today we're going to be talking about the usage of time in one of my favourite games, Katana Zero. Time is defined as the indefinite continued progress of existence and events in the past, present and future regarded as a whole. Needless to say, Katana Zero subverts this phenomenon as a game where the main character's superpower is to control time. This video will analyse how Katana Zero uses time as both a gameplay and story mechanic and why this is such an important theme for the game. But first, the most important usage of time.
That gingerbread's now got flour, honey, eggs and spices.
I beg to differ. You omit the most important ingredient in gingerbread. Time.
In all seriousness, Katana Zero is a 2D pixel art action platformer developed by ASCIIsoft and published by Devolver Digital. It was released on the 18th of April 2019, and in Katana Zero, players will engage in side-scrolling levels similar to the design of classics such as Ninja Gaiden. The player character, Subject Zero, or simply Zero, is a hired assassin who, among other skills, has the ability to control time through the use of a drug known as Chronos. The name is derived from the Greek word for time as well as the god who personifies it and whose name still features in the English language through words usage such as chronological, anachronistic and many others. Some also believe that Chronos' name gave rise to the allegory of Father Time, a typically old bearded man who serves as the modern personification of time. Beyond clever naming, time and the control of it in the gameplay of Katana Zero is manifested in two very interesting ways. Firstly, similar to Dark Souls' Undead system, Katana Zero justifies the respawn mechanic as Zero merely planning his attack. Thus, should players' strategy fail, the next attempt is merely Zero considering an alternative route before actually executing his attack, which is reflected in the game by a screen that says, "No, that won't work." Appropriately, respawns are also intensely quick, ensuring that the player is not left frustrated and can immediately get back into the action. This system is neatly wrapped up by the game because at the end of every combat sequence, the player is then shown Zero's actions in real time. This approach is incredibly similar to the system seen in Superhot, another time-travelling indie game released 3 years earlier. The benefit of this approach, as is well known, is that it leaves the player feeling like a complete badass as they slice and dice through tens of enemies in the brief space of seconds, and this retrospective approach is nothing but quality entertainment by allowing them to see what the encounter looked like for the enemy, despite the fact that they had the benefit of the game's second approach to time control. This second method has a much more direct impact in combat, as the player can strategically slow time to surpass a level, but this is limited by a meter which will slowly empty the more that the player uses it. However, this meter will automatically refill whilst you play in real time. One reason that this is so important is because in order to successfully complete a room, players must complete the encounter flawlessly, as Zero will die in only one hit. Using this mechanic will enable players to much more easily deflect bullets, throw items and kill enemies, all occurring in the heat of battle. It also interacts well with the mechanics in the game such as lasers, machine gun turrets and crushing blocks, as it enables the player to avoid these obstacles in tricky puzzle-esque sections. How to use the meter is optional, and players may use it conservatively, only when seeking to complete a particularly difficult combat section, or they may take a more liberal approach, taking levels at a snail's pace by using it at every available opportunity. Although this second approach may sound like bad design, I would argue that it is sufficiently dissuaded by the ability to continuously retry levels, and because it ruins the fun, fast and flowing feeling of combat, and as such, players are likely to adopt an approach somewhere in the middle of using it merely periodically. And yes, that was hard to say. Time is not only used in Katana Zero's gameplay, but also in its story. In a more limited sense, it can be manipulated as a mechanic in dialogue to help drive the story forward. For example, in one instance, Zero reverses time in order to correctly predict the outcome of a game of roulette. Small interactions like this embed time as a theme throughout the game and show how the game's creator, Justin Stander, is constantly referring to it. However, more broadly, it also plays a significant thematic role in the game's story. As a perspective to have the game's story told from, Zero is likely the worst protagonist for the purposes of continuity and simplicity. This is, in large part, because he does not only suffer from nightmares, but the side effects of Chronos, meaning that time will often skip forward multiple hours, leaving the player with many questions as to what has occurred. In one scene, Zero is in a bar, and on multiple occasions, time will seemingly jump forward, with alterations occurring in every scene. The player is then left in the dark as to what occurred in that jump, and this approach is used much more wide-scale in the main story, such as in boss fights later in the game. Due to this approach to storytelling, it is often very difficult to determine when and where the player is, which leaves them with a constant sense of doubt as to the validity of what they are seeing on screen. This is a very creative method of storytelling and is thematically appropriate with the usage of a drug, in that it reflects symptoms and occurrences that real-life drug addicts would experience. This approach can further be seen through the character Headhunter, who excellently portrays this realistic and desperate approach to character design. Headhunter, like Zero, is a former Null soldier and addicted to Kronos. In your fight with her, she laments how they each have superhuman powers, yet must fight one another like two druggies squabbling over the one last puff, and remarks how she could drink some of Zero's blood to further sustain her. This level of attention to detail differentiates Katana Zero's writing as not only mature, but consistent in its serious tone and the themes that it seeks to evoke. Time, in this instance, is merely a vehicle for commentary on the much broader issue of addiction. Equally, this level of detail is consistently maintained throughout the game's 5-hour runtime, to the extent that each time Zero is injected with the drug, time appears to slow and noise becomes distorted to emphasize the effects of his addiction. Time is so important in Katana Zero because it permeates its design. Without time, Katana Zero would not be half the game it is today. Its importance is constantly reflected at both the micro and macro levels, with examples of the former including moment-to-moment combat interactions, whereas the latter is represented through the design of the story, which leads to various twists and turns towards the end of the game that would not have been possible without the impact of time and its distortive effect on the game's narrative. It is therefore plain to see that Katana Zero has been worth discussing, as it creatively manipulates time as its primary theme and maintains this throughout the entirety of the experience. Thank you very much for watching my video. This is my third video in the Worth Discussing series, and I've created a playlist for it on my channel. If you enjoyed this episode of Worth Discussing and would like to see more just like it, then please subscribe, as I plan to make many more videos like this in the future, as I will be considering this to be the backbone of my content. In that vein, I have a video planned for the future coming in the next couple of weeks about Dead Cells and its use of momentum, as well as a shorter video ranking my top 5 weapons in Bloodborne with analysis. I know, I've already sold out. Please leave a comment below to let me know what you thought of this video, and other than that, thanks very much to my patrons whose support constantly encourages me to make more of these videos. I really appreciate it. And thank you for watching, so until next time, see you later.